Good morning and happy holidays to all of my Live with Tony listeners. And we've got our New Year's Eve celebrations this evening and New Year's Day tomorrow, and we're off to another year. And it is hard for me to believe that we've gone through the year 2025 about as quickly as any year that I can think of, and also through half the decade. We'll be into the 2100s before we know it at the rate we're going. It seems like it'll be tomorrow. But in any case, it is time for a Happy New Year's, and my goodness, what article in my archives that I think of more appropriate at this time of the year than an issue in the On Health put out by Consumer Reports, June of 2025. I think it should have been republished at this time. It talks about impacts of what we eat and how it impacts our sleep. And during this time of the year, as people are celebrating holidays and traveling and being delayed in airports and having family dinners and get-togethers and then New Year's Eve celebrations until who knows what time in the morning, people run into an issue of sleep at this time of the year. And what we're eating as well, where we are, how much we're eating, buffets, celebration meals, family cookouts, cook-ins together, and how what we're eating and what our eating habits do and how they impact our sleep and how our social habits impact our sleep and things that will keep us up. So I thought I'd just do a quick review of this article that was published back in June, since it's appropriate for this time of the year. So let's get right to work here. Hormone regulation. Hormones, chemical messages that affect and manage the body's processes that are involved in sleep, have an impact on melatonin. And what melatonin does is it helps regulate our sleep-wake cycles. And as we go through the day, right, levels rise in the day to tell the body to prepare for sleep as we decrease melatonin in the morning, which then says it's time to wake up. So as we age, melatonin signals and receptors are as strong as they used to be, so we may need, are not as strong. God, let me get the not as strong as they used to be. So we need more of it to regulate our rhythms and when we sleep and what we can do. And what we eat makes a difference. Our bodies use tryptophan. It's an acid in foods to produce a lot of melatonin that we need. So some foods that we eat may contain that. So there's the first thing, hormone regulation. And who's stepping back to think about what we're eating at New Year's, Christmas, or whatever is going to impact our melatonin and how our melatonin levels change the way we wake up or the way we go to sleep. How about inflammation? Second issue, inflammation. Eating too much of certain foods such as processed meats, refined carbohydrates, fats, and sugars increase inflammation in the body. And that certainly has a negative impact on our overall health. An analysis that was published in the Journal for Sleep found that people who ate inflammatory diets had a 40% greater risk of sleeping 6 hours or less than those that had an anti-inflammatory diet. And that's an interesting piece of information. So what are the foods that you're eating that fit the carbohydrates, the processed meats, white breads, fats, sugars, and what they're doing to our sleep and whether we're getting our recommended 7 to 8 hours. The diet that's filled with inflammatory foods lead to excessive amounts of I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this well, cytokines, cytokines, and obviously they're inflammatory and high, and this chemical triggers sleep disturbances. And then, of course, the last element here is gut microbiomes. Your gut and your brain are connected. Now, that's an interesting thing. The gut and the brain connected. Well, one is down here in the lower part of your body, the other's up in here. And yet, yes, there's so much research talking about how those two are connected. And the gut and the brain are connected, and they commute directly with one another. Molecules are looking at the chain of fatty acids, and they are made from the foods that we eat. The fatty acids influence the genes that help set our rhythms and regulate our sleep wake-ups. So what are we doing in terms of any focus we have in recognizing how it impacts our sleep. Now, to me, this is interesting to talk about at this time of the year because I think we all indulge. It's almost like going on a cruise for a week. What we do for Christmas and the celebrations and the family visits and the social activities and the places that we go to, the restaurants and company events and fairs, everybody's eating food, right? Food seems to be the common denominator, and so everybody's eating food. And so what are the foods that you can eat that can help offset some of this? So you can still eat, but what do you want to do? Well, plant-based foods, we keep hearing more and more, and I see more and more plant-based foods that people are offering in restaurants and places where you can almost find a plant-based food of some kind on a menu of most places that you go to this day and age. Fiber, which is found in the plant foods, but fiber improves health. Fruits and nuts, vegetables, legumes, and seeds. Whole grains are all a good source of fiber. And how about anti-inflammatory fats? Using olive oil and other monosaturated fats can help reduce inflammation. You can find them in avocados and nuts, and limit your intake of saturated foods, which add to your inflammation. And then get helper nutrients. You can go B6, magnesium, zinc, vitamin D helps. And you can add these things into your diets, and you can still eat and still enjoy the holidays, eating just the right foods. And again, you have to be committed for your overall health, and that your overall health to me is always, what's your memory doing, since that's the thing most people worry about losing the most, which is their memories. And so these are things that are impacting your gut and your brain and the impact you have on cognitive function as well. Since we know in our 6 key factors of long-term mental health, in our research for our online course, we discovered that our sleeping has a major impact on our mental function, cognitive function. So there's a tie-in to that, and those are part of our 6 key factors of mental health. And there are some food habits that will keep you up. And so we don't want to have ultra-processed foods, soda, hot dogs, chips, fatty foods that are loaded with it. Caffeine, boy, we're learning a lot in the past year about caffeine and its impact in terms of the coffee and the teas and the different foods, the chocolates that we have. Alcohol certainly makes us feel sleepy at times, but it creates interrupted sleep patterns. And therefore, alcohol, at this time of the year, it's like, my goodness, everybody has to have a drink to celebrate New Year's, but do we understand that that's going to interrupt our sleep patterns and also our mental functions? And again, this is not just a one-time thing. It's, you want to carry these behaviors throughout the year. Maybe just be a little bit more alert during the holiday season this year. And spicy foods, any food that gives you heartburn and indigestion can help you stay awake. And I know people with acid reflux or people that have spicy foods, sometimes they recommend spicy foods are good for your digestion. Other times it's like, wait a minute, spicy foods are not good. And then, of course, drinking a lot of alcohol or a large glass of water, for me, after 7 o'clock at night, certainly keeps you up because you're what? You're hydrating before a few hours of sleep, but then you have to get up and wind up spending time in the bathroom. So I found this article timely again. It was published at Consumers Reports on Health in June of 2025. But boy, is it appropriate to be republished here in December of 2025, since we're into activities and behaviors that impact all of the things that we just talked about. So with that, it's time to say, okay, let's have a celebration. Let's recognize we're into a new year. Let's realize, I always remember Angie Dickinson a number of years ago saying, I always thought New Year's was like 5 times of Friday night, and I've discovered my expectations may be a little unrealistic. Maybe it's just 2 times a Friday night. And if you've enjoyed yourself doing Friday nights during the year, then what's the big deal about New Year's? So that's an interesting way of looking at New Year's, which then causes people not to be depressed by recognizing, God, I didn't get this big, huge high on New Year's Eve, but that it all comes together. And therefore, getting my nutritional habits, my sleep habits, my stress under control, not getting myself too worked up emotionally, is not a bad thing for us. and certainly helps us as we go into the new year. So with that, I hope my Live with Tony listeners have gained some insights during the 2025 broadcast that I do. Usually work to do Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And the great success we had with our 26th USA Memory Championship and where we're going in 2027. And stay with us, and we'll keep going on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays as we go into the new year of 2026, which I keep thinking about. Where did 21, 22, 23? Oh my goodness, they're just going by a little too quick. I hope there's some way we can figure out how to slow them down just a little bit. Have a good holiday, and we'll see you next year.